Prayer in the field of silence. When the detrimental impact of prolonged survival mode. There comes a moment when the body has carried the weight of survival for too long. The nervous system, once designed to protect for brief bursts of danger, has been forced into vigilance without pause, as though the emergency never ends. What was meant to be a temporary state becomes a way of living. The muscles tighten before thought, the breath shortens before awareness, the heart races even in stillness. The body forgets how to rest, how to trust, how to belong to peace. It remembers only how to endure. And in that endurance, something essential begins to fade. Survival mode was never meant to be a home. It was a bridge, a fire to carry us across moments of true peril. Yet many have built their dwellings on that bridge, mistaking its urgency for life itself. The body, loyal to its conditioning, adapts by turning down the signals of growth, silencing the songs of repair, withholding the gifts of balance. It keeps only what is necessary for the next imagined threat. And in doing so, the future of vitality is sacrificed for the illusion of safety. Genes that once spoke of health and renewal grow quiet. Others awaken, whispering of inflammation, disease, and decline. When stress hormones saturate the system day after day, life is reduced to short-term survival, and the deeper rhythms of longevity are abandoned. What begins as resilience transforms into fragility. What begins as balance turns into imbalance. The body itself begins to etch stress into its own biology, shaping illness not out of malice but out of misdirected loyalty. And within this landscape arises a paradox. The body, the very vessel of life, can become addicted to the very states that diminish it. Fear sharpens the senses and feels alive. Anger quickens the pulse and feels like energy. Anxiety floods the mind and feels like purpose. The chemistry of stress becomes a strange comfort, a rhythm too familiar to release. And so one may seek out conflict, drama, or pain, not because they are wanted but because they are known. The nervous system clings to what it remembers, even if what it remembers is suffering. The brain too bends to this state. In survival, its higher capacities are set aside. Creativity, vision, imagination. They are sacrificed so that attention can narrow to the immediate threat. Thought becomes repetitive, circling around the same fears, rehearsing the same scenarios, preparing endlessly for dangers that may never come. The landscape of the mind becomes a small cage where only worst-case visions are allowed to grow. What could have been a garden of possibility becomes a barren soil of constant anticipation. The immune system, deprived of energy, loses its strength. Infections linger longer. The body becomes slower to recover. The risk of chronic conditions increases. Survival mode, once a shield, becomes a thief. It robs vitality in its effort to preserve it. It is as though the fortress has become the prison, and the guard has become the enemy. And perhaps the greatest loss is not in the body, nor even in the mind, but in the heart. For prolonged survival erodes the capacity for joy, gratitude, wonder, love. The elevated emotions that give life meaning are silenced beneath the constant hum of vigilance. Gratitude feels impossible when the mind is preoccupied with threats. Joy feels unreachable when the heart is braced against disappointment. Connection feels dangerous when every moment is spent protecting rather than opening. The present moment is overlooked, the future feels threatening, and only the past seems familiar. Life is reduced to endurance, to getting through the day, to existing without fully living. And yet, even here, the field of silence whispers another truth. Survival is not destiny. It is a state, not an identity. Within every being lies the possibility of remembering, of choosing again, of reclaiming the fullness of life. The first key is awareness. To notice the familiar pull of old thoughts. To recognize the craving for emotional storms that no longer serve. To see clearly the ways in which the body and mind return to stress not out of necessity but out of habit. Awareness breaks the trance. It creates space between reaction and choice. Breath becomes the second key. To inhale slowly, deeply, is to signal safety to the body. Each breath becomes a reminder that this moment is not a battlefield, that there is time to expand, that the lungs themselves can be sanctuaries. With each exhalation, the nervous system learns again to release, to soften, to trust. Breath reintroduces rhythm where chaos has reigned, balance where panic has lingered. Compassion follows like water flowing into dry soil. Compassion for the self that has lived under siege. Compassion for the body that has carried the burden. Compassion for the mind that has narrowed in its effort to protect. This compassion is not indulgence. It is healing. It allows the heart to acknowledge what has been lost without judgment, to forgive the strategies that once felt necessary, and to open to something new. Compassion begins to dissolve the walls built by survival. With compassion comes choice. The choice to practice gratitude not as a fleeting emotion but as a discipline. To feel it even in small ways, to let it seep into the cells, to teach the body a new chemistry that uplifts instead of depletes. The choice to imagine futures that are not filled with catastrophe, but with beauty, abundance, and connection. The choice to rehearse elevated emotions as daily practice, to tune the heart to joy, to love, to wonder. These choices are not made once, but again and again, until the body begins to crave peace more than conflict, until the mind longs for vision more than fear, until the heart prefers expansion over contraction. When repeated, these practices awaken dormant genes of healing and repair. The immune system strengthens. The brain clears. The heart opens. Life begins to move from surviving to creating, from protecting to flourishing. The body learns a new homeostasis, one not built on vigilance but on balance. The mind rediscovers flexibility. The soul remembers that it came not only to endure but to expand, not only to react but to create. And so, in the field of silence, this prayer becomes a reminder and an invitation. Step beyond the narrow corridors of survival. Step into the spaciousness of life. Let the breath be medicine. Let the heart be compass. Let the mind be garden. For you were never meant to live only in reaction. You were meant to live in creation. You were never meant only to brace against life. You were meant to dance with it. Survival has served its purpose. It brought you here. But now something greater awaits. The field is ready. The silence is open. Life itself is asking you to choose again. So breathe deeply, feel fully, rehearse with care, choose with presence, and become the version of yourself you are meant to be.